Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going deep on The Last Wish.
Oh, yeah. The Last
Yeah.
Wish. This is the one that started it all, right? The Witcher, as we know him.
Exactly. It's the collection of short stories that introduced Geralt of Rivia. But we're going beyond just like a simple plot summary, you know?
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at themes and how the characters develop. And, I mean, how did this collection of monster stories, how did it become this, like, global phenomenon?
It's amazing how much world building is packed into The Last Wish, right? You get hints of politics and moral questions and this whole destiny versus free will thing. And all this is going on while Geralt's just trying to, do his job, slay some monsters.
Yeah. So Geralt himself, let's start there.
Yeah.
How does Sapkowski first introduce him?
Well, he walks into this town, right? Silver sword on his back,
Yeah.
white hair. And it's like, well, it's a world full of swordsmen, but something about Geralt. Something about him is different.
Yeah. What is it about him? What makes him stand out?
You get the sense immediately that he's not really an insider, but he's not really an outsider. He lives among humans, but he's different. The training he went through to become a Witcher, and the mutations, it gave him these crazy abilities. But it also sets him apart. Makes you wonder, does he belong anywhere?
Right away, you see this conflict play out in that tavern scene. He just takes out those thugs. It's like it's nothing to him, but he doesn't seem to enjoy it.
No. He even tries to talk them down first, Before things get violent, it's like this moral code he has battling against the brutality of being a Witcher. This is something that comes up again and again throughout the stories.
And then there's the Strya,
Mm-hmm.
the cursed princess who's terrorizing Wyzem. It's classic monster story.
Yeah.
But even there, Sapkowski brings up these deeper questions, like about power and the choices we make.
You've got the king. He's desperate to save his daughter. And then his advisors, some of them are scheming.
Yeah.
Urging Geralt to just kill the Striga, say the spell failed. It's like personal tragedy mixed up in these power struggles.
And Geralt, he could just take the easy way out, right? Do what they say.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. He wants to lift the curse, even though it's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah. And even after reading about, how the Striga feeds the heart and liver war for her valuable reserves of nutrition, it's pretty gruesome. And then Geralt has to bite her to break the curse. It's brutal.
Yeah. It's not your average fairy tale happy ending.
It's Sapkowski showing us that the world is ugly, even when someone's trying to be a hero. And it makes you think, who's the real monster here? The Striga or the people who caused the curse?
Yeah. It all started because a king had an incestuous relationship, and somebody said a careless curse. It really makes you think about the consequences of our actions and destinies being all tangled up together.
And then you have the law of surprise, that pops up all the time and just throws everything into chaos.
Yeah, so how does that work exactly? The law of surprise. Break it down for us.
So if someone saves another person's life, they can invoke the law of surprise. It basically means they're owed something, the person who was saved. They have this thing they possess, but they don't even know about it yet. It's like this life debt wrapped up in tradition and superstition, and it can tie people together in ways they never saw coming.
So it's not just debts. It's like destiny being shaped by random encounters. And speaking of which, Nivellen, the cursed nobleman, he's living with this woman, and she's a Bruxa the vampire. What do you make of that whole relationship?
It really messes with your ideas about love and what's a monster. Nivellen, he looks like a beast, but he's capable of such love and generosity, and the Bruxa, she's dangerous. But she can also love and be loyal. It's like Sapkowski is taking Beauty and the Beast and flipping it on its head. It makes you ask, can you find love anywhere, even with someone everyone else thinks is a monster?
And Geralt himself, he has to fight a Bruxa in one of the stories. And he wins, but it doesn't feel like a victory. He seems sad almost.
He sees the world in shades of gray, and he's a monster slayer. But he doesn't think he's the good guy. And he doesn't think all monsters are evil. He gets it. Sometimes people and monsters end up having to make tough choices.
It's like he's always fighting with himself, about who he is, especially in that story with Renfri, the Butcher of Blaviken.
Oh, Renfri. She's such a fascinating character, driven by revenge. But you can see why she's so angry. She was hurt, abused, abandoned by people who should have protected her.
And Geralt, he's stuck in the middle of her revenge plot. He tries to talk to her, find a peaceful way out. But in the end, he has to choose. Does he kill her and her people, or does he risk them killing innocent people in the market?
That's where he gets the name Butcher of Blaviken. And it follows him. It shows us that even when you try to do the right thing, you can still end up doing something terrible, and people judge you for it, no matter what.
It's dark. It really brings up this theme of paying the price for your actions.
And sometimes the price isn't physical, it's emotional, psychological. It weighs on Gerald.
It's like Sapkowski is showing us the moral struggles of this world, and maybe our own too.
What makes Gerald so interesting is he's fighting this internal battle all the time, trying to make his job fit with his conscience.
Then you've got a question of price. Gerald invokes the law of surprise and ends up tied to Princess Pavetta, this young woman with uncontrollable magic. That whole banquet scene, when her powers explode, it shows just how unpredictable destiny can be and dangerous.
It's like that banquet is, well, it's a mini version of the whole world. You see the politics, the fear of the unknown love that crosses boundaries, and magic as this force that can create and destroy. And it's also where we first see the connection between Gerald and Ciri, the child of surprise.
It's a turning point. You can feel Gerald's fate shifting. He's not just a monster slayer anymore. Now he's tied to this child, a destiny he didn't choose, but it's going to change him forever.
And that's what's so brilliant about how Sapkowski writes. He weaves all of these threads together: monster hunting, politics, relationships, destiny, choice. It all becomes this tapestry. It's complex. It makes you think.
Before we get too deep into that tapestry, let's talk about the last story in the collection, which also happens to be the title story, The Last Wish. It introduces us to Yennefer of Vengerberg.
Yennefer. She's a force of nature, powerful sorceress, ambitious, independent, and she challenges Geralt in ways no monster ever could. Their first meeting, it's like a clash of titans, magic, desire, danger.
It's not exactly your typical, boy meets girl.
Not at all. Geralt gets caught up in her plan to trap a djinn, which is this powerful wish-granting creature, and things get pretty crazy. You see Geralt's sense of humor, though, and how quick he can think on his feet.
What about their dynamic? What do you think about how they interact?
It's captivating right from the start. They're both so strong-willed, intelligent, and they're both used to getting what they want. There's this attraction between them, but there's also this wary respect, maybe even fear. They see each other as equals, and that's not something either of them finds very often.
And the whole djinn thing, it really shows how tempting power can be and how magic can be used to create or destroy. You see Yennefer's ambition, but you also see Geralt understanding how you have to balance using magic with not letting it consume you.
And let's not forget about Dandelion. He's more than just the funny guy. He's Geralt's connection to humanity, He reminds Geralt that there's still beauty and joy in the world, even with all the darkness.
He definitely gets put through the ringer in that story.
Yeah.
Thanks to a certain wish gone wrong.
But their friendship, they're so different, but they're so loyal to each other. It shows the power of connection. Dandelion grounds. Geralt reminds him that even a witcher needs someone to laugh with, someone to remind him why he fights for a better world.
So we've got this complex hero, a world full of monsters and magic, and all these intertwined destinies. It's no wonder people have loved these stories for so long. So where do we go from here?
Well, The Last Wish, it's just the beginning. It's a foundation for this huge saga that explores fate and choice and the power of human connection in a world that feels magical and real at the same time.
It's clear that we've got a lot more to unpack here. We've only just scratched the surface. The Last Wish is so much more than just monster stories.
It really is. It's so layered, it makes you want to analyze it,
Yeah.
both as a fan and academically. One thing that really stands out is how Sapkowski takes those classic fairy tale ideas and turns them upside down. We talked about Nivellen and the Bruxa, but it goes even deeper than that.
It does. Even in a story like A Grain of Truth, it starts off feeling like one of those, whodunit mysteries, but then Sapkowski flips everything.
Right. It's like Geralt walks into this bloody scene, and his Witcher senses tell him, well, something's not right. He's like a detective putting together the clues, following this trail of violence to Nivellen's mansion. It's a classic setup.
But then the monster isn't some scary creature. It's Nivellen himself, cursed because of something he did in the past, and the devil that the villagers are sacrificing to. It turns out to be a Sylvan.
And the Sylvan is just as misunderstood as Nivellen. It's like Sapkowski is using this monster story to say something about prejudice and blind faith, The villagers are so scared of what they don't know, they cling to these old rituals, and they end up creating the very problem they're trying to solve.
It's like how we're always afraid of things we don't understand. We let our biases and what everyone else thinks, we let it control us.
Exactly. Geralt, with his outsider's perspective and his logic, he sees through the fear and finds a way to help both the villagers and the Sylvan. He's not just killing monsters, he's like a mediator. Someone who bridges the gap between humans and monsters.
And that idea of challenging how we see things,
Yeah.
it's a big part of the edge of the world, too.
Yeah.
Gerald and Dandelion end up in this really remote area, full of folklore and ancient beliefs.
And that's where they meet the elves who are, well, they're hiding from humans, trying to build a life for themselves on the edge of society.
It's a reminder that the real monsters aren't always the ones with fangs and claws. Sometimes it's us, humans.
Yeah, the elves in this story, they're not like those perfect magical beings you see in other fantasy stories. These elves are desperate, they're angry, and they have every right to be angry. The humans took everything from them.
Their leader, Philivandrel,
Mm-hmm.
he's really interesting. So proud, defiant, completely disillusioned with humanity.
Those conversations between him and Gerald, they're some of the best in the whole collection. They argue about good and evil, whether violence is ever justified, and how hard it is to live in a world where cultures clash and everyone's prejudiced.
In Gerald, even though he has his own biases, he starts to understand what the elves are going through. He doesn't see them as monsters. He sees victims who had to make tough choices to survive.
That empathy, that ability to look beyond the surface, it's what makes Gerald such a great character. He's not all good or all bad. He understands that sometimes there's no easy answer, no clear right or wrong.
It's a powerful message, especially for fantasy, which
Yeah.
can be pretty black and white about good and evil.
And it's something that resonates with people, especially today with all the talk about prejudice and discrimination and cultures clashing.
Sapkowski doesn't shy away from tough topics. He makes you confront your own biases and think about things from another perspective.
That's part of why The Last Wish and the whole Witcher saga have become so popular. It's more than just good fantasy. It's something people connect with on a deeper level.
It's gone way beyond just books now. There are video games, a Netflix series. Even academics are studying it, trying to understand its cultural impact.
The video games especially, they let people experience the Witcher world in a new way. You get to make choices that change the story, deal with those moral dilemmas, see the consequences of your actions firsthand.
It's really interesting how the adaptations build on what Sapkowski created, but also add their own perspectives.
The Netflix show brought The Witcher to a whole new audience, It really brings the world and the characters to life.
It's amazing how The Witcher started as this Polish fantasy series, and now it's a global phenomenon.
It just shows you how powerful good storytelling can be. Sapkowski created these characters and this world that feels familiar and strange at the same time, and it captured people's imaginations.
It feels like the more we dig into The Last Wish, the more we find we've talked about fairy tales and moral choices and prejudice and how Gerald's world has become so popular. But there's still so much to explore, especially when it comes to the cultural impact of this collection of stories. The Last Wish. It's like it planted this little seed, and then this whole forest grew up around it. All these stories, adaptations, different ways of looking at it.
A forest full of monsters,
Yeah.
magic, and, well, questions about what it means to be human in a world that doesn't always feel very human.
And that's what gets me about Gerald. He's this Witcher mutated,
Yeah.
a monster slayer.
But he's also, well, he's got this capacity for compassion, empathy, even love. That's why people relate to him. He struggles with who he is, what his purpose is, where he fits in. He makes mistakes, gets hurt, doubts himself. He's not like, some perfect hero. He's flawed, vulnerable human.
You see it especially in how he is with women. Renfrey Yennefer. He's drawn to strong women, independent women. But I think he's also afraid of how intense their emotions are. The potential for...
Well, for heartbreak. His relationship with Yennefer, it's complicated. They're both so powerful, used to being in control. But the connection between them, it's undeniable. It's passionate, unstable, full of tenderness and conflict. They push each other's buttons, bring out the best and worst in each other.
It's definitely not your typical, damsel in distress situation.
Not at all. Sapkowski writes women who are forces to be reckoned with. They're smart, they're resourceful, they make their own choices, even when it's hard.
And that's what's resonated with so many people, I think. That complexity, that willingness to show characters who have depth.
It's why The Witcher has become this global phenomenon. People see themselves in these characters and their struggles, their victories, their imperfections.
And the impact goes beyond just entertainment. Academics are looking at The Last Wish and the other books. They're finding all these layers: post-Soviet identity, Eastern European folklore,
Yeah.
how myths and legends shape our understanding of the world.
It's pretty amazing how these fantasy stories can spark so many different interpretations and conversations. It shows how literature can connect with people on all these different levels, make you think, challenge what you believe, give you new perspectives.
For me, one of the biggest takeaways from The Last Wish is, well, destiny isn't set in stone. It's more like a tapestry, woven from choices, random encounters, the consequences of what we do.
Gerald might be bound to Siri by the law of surprise, but it's his choices, his actions that really shape their destiny. He's not just going through the motions, he's making his own future and the future of the people around him.
It gives you hope, right? That even in a world full of monsters and magic, we still have the power to choose.
And that choice, that responsibility, it can be exciting, but it's scary too. It's what makes life, both in The Witcher and in our world, so challenging and so meaningful.
So for anyone out there who's just starting to explore The Witcher, what would you say is the most important thing to remember?
Be open. Be ready to be challenged, to have your expectations turned upside down, to meet characters who aren't perfect. Embrace the messiness, the moral gray areas, the humor, the heart.
Because The Last Wish, it's not just a book, it's an invitation to explore this world that's magical and real at the same time. To really think about the choices we make and to see the humanity that connects us all, even when things get monstrous.
It's a journey worth taking.
It really is.
Mm.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into The Last Wish. Thanks for joining us. We hope you'll keep exploring this incredible saga.
There's always more to discover.
Until next time, happy reading.